I've spent my life chasing things most people laugh at. Strange footprints in the mud, cries in the night, shadows in the trees. But nothing could have prepared me for what I witnessed deep in the Congo Basin, an encounter with something that defies logic, science, and maybe even time itself. The locals called it Mokele-Mbembe. I'd heard the name whispered like a warning, always followed by nervous laughter, as if saying it too loud might summon it from the water. Some said it was just a legend, a campfire tale passed down to keep children from wandering too close to the riverbanks. Others swore it was real, a beast older than mankind, still roaming the swamps and rivers where the jungle swallows everything. To be honest, I didn't believe either side. I came for evidence, not fairy tales. But when you step foot into the Congo rainforest, belief stops mattering. The air itself feels alive, heavy with secrets, buzzing with unseen eyes. It started with the river. One evening, as the sun sank behind the canopy, I noticed something unusual. The water didn't flow the way it should have. A massive ripple cut across the surface, slow but deliberate, like a barge gliding beneath. Yet there was no boat, no log, no crocodile. Just that swell of water, too wide, too strong. The guides went quiet. One of them muttered a word under his breath. I didn't understand it then, but later I learned it was another name for the creature. Their silence wasn't fear of predators, it was fear of something more, something ancient. That night, lying in my tent, I heard it for the first time. Not a roar, not a growl, but a low, rumbling bellow that shook the air so deep it felt like the earth itself groaned. The sound rolled across the water, lingering in the dark until it faded into silence. My guides froze. No one moved. I whispered, asking what it was. One of them simply said, "Mokele-Mbembe." And that was the moment I realized I wasn't chasing shadows anymore, something was chasing me. The next morning, the jungle was drenched in mist, the kind that clings to your skin and hides the world in gray. We pushed our dugout canoes farther upriver, every paddle stroke sending ripples into the silence. The forest seemed to be holding its breath. That's when I saw it. On the muddy shoreline, half covered by reeds, was a print. At first, I thought it belonged to a hippo, massive, round, pressed deep into the earth. But hippo tracks don't stretch that long, and hippos don't leave claw marks. I crouched beside it, running my hand along the edges. The impression was fresh. Whatever made it had passed through hours earlier. My guide, Joseph, shook his head and urged us to keep moving. When I pressed him, he whispered, "It does not like to be followed." Hours later, we stopped to rest near a bend in the river. Birds chattered in the canopy above, but suddenly, as if on command, they went silent. Not one chirp, not one rustle, just silence. Then came the water. It rose beneath the surface, swelling into a mound the size of a truck. The canoe rocked violently. My heart pounded as the swell moved toward us, slow, deliberate, circling, like a predator testing its prey. And then nothing. The water stilled, the silence deepened. We sat frozen, gripping the edges of the canoe. I wanted to believe it was a crocodile, a hippo, anything that fit into the world I knew, but deep down, I already understood. This wasn't nature as we know it. It was something else. Something older, something watching. Darkness settled over the Congolese jungle as the expedition finally set up camp along the narrow riverbank. The fire crackled, casting fleeting shadows across the thick mist that crept between the trees. Everyone was exhausted, days of endless hacking through undergrowth, blistering heat, swarms of biting insects. It drained both body and spirit. Yet in their eyes still burned a fragile spark of hope. Each of them could feel it. The truth was close. Dr. Hammond, the leader of the expedition, studied the map by the firelight, smoothing its edges with trembling fingers. The elder of the Baka tribe, who had guided them this far, pointed to a bend in the river and whispered, "There. That is where it lives, Mokele-Mbembe." He spoke the name with hesitation, as if even uttering it might summon disaster. His face was grave, his eyes wary, and the jungle seemed to lean in, listening. The next morning they paddled upstream. The further they traveled, the thicker the fog became, coiling around them like a living thing. Birds that once filled the canopy with sound had fallen silent, even the insects seemed hushed. No one dared speak loudly, only the rhythmic splash of paddles disturbed the stillness. Then it happened. The water beneath the boat shuddered. At first it was subtle, like the tremor of a hidden current. But soon the surface churned violently, as though something vast moved below. A chill spread through the group. Someone whispered, "It's him." Suddenly a massive neck rose from the river, glistening with dark, leathery skin. Two eyes, glowing faintly red in the haze, locked onto them. The creature loomed higher, releasing a low, resonant bellow that rolled across the water and rattled through their bones. Panic erupted. One of the porters leapt into the jungle, another tumbled screaming into the river. The boats rocked wildly as the surge from the beast's movement threatened to overturn them. But Dr. Hammond, instead of fleeing, raised his camera with trembling hands. He knew this was his moment, the proof that could rewrite history. Just one picture, one undeniable frame. He steadied himself, breath ragged, and pressed the shutter. Yet in the same instant the creature slipped back beneath the surface. The lens captured nothing but ripples spreading across the water, slowly fading into silence. The jungle returned to stillness, but the silence felt unnatural, charged with an unseen presence. Each member of the expedition sat frozen, hearts pounding, their minds caught between awe and terror. That night, Hammond remained by the fire long after the others had collapsed into uneasy sleep. His hands still shook, not from fear alone, but from the weight of revelation. What they had witnessed was not just an animal. In the creature's eyes, he had seen intelligence, perhaps even judgment. It had chosen to appear before them, to warn them. In the following days, the team stayed near the river bend, desperate for another sighting. They discovered signs, crushed vegetation, enormous impressions in the mud, and strange churning in the water, as if a massive body had passed through. Each clue confirmed what they already knew: the beast was real. But there was something else. A feeling that grew stronger with every passing night. They were being watched. Sometimes they heard splashes in the distance, or a deep rumbling that shook the earth beneath them. Sometimes, in the darkness, someone felt eyes upon them, unseen but undeniable. Fear gnawed at the group. Murmurs of abandoning the mission spread. Still, Hammond refused. His obsession had taken hold. "It will return," he whispered to himself, clutching the camera as if it were a sacred relic, "and this time I'll be ready." The jungle was restless that night. The cicadas had fallen silent, the frogs ceased their endless chorus, and even the trees seemed to hold their breath. Hammond sat by the river, camera clutched tight, the firelight barely piercing the fog that crawled across the water. The others slept uneasily behind him, though whether it was true rest or sheer exhaustion he could not tell. Then came the sound, a deep, resonant rumble, like thunder trapped beneath the earth. The river rippled, disturbed from below. Hammond rose, his heart hammering. He knew it was here. The mist parted, and the water swelled upward in a great surge. Rising from the depths, immense and undeniable, came Mokele-Mbembe. Its neck stretched high into the air, muscles rippling beneath leathery skin. Its eyes glowed faintly red, reflecting the firelight piercing straight into Hammond's soul. He lifted his camera, hands trembling, but forced himself steady. "This is it. This is the proof. The world will finally know." He pressed the shutter once, twice, 3 times, the click echoing louder than the fire's crackle. The creature didn't flee this time. It loomed closer, the river churning violently around it. A sound, half roar, half bellow, rolled from its chest, vibrating the very air. Hammond staggered back, almost dropping his camera, yet something in those eyes held him frozen. They were not the eyes of a mindless beast. They were ancient, intelligent, a presence that had seen centuries pass, untouched by human hands. The ground shook as the creature moved nearer. One of the porters awoke, screamed, and fled into the jungle. The others scrambled to their feet, panic erupting once more. But Hammond stayed rooted. The creature stopped, towering above him, as if judging the small figure who dared to stand in its path. Hammond slowly lowered the camera. "I don't want to harm you," he whispered, his voice shaking. "I only want the world to know you exist." For a long moment, nothing moved. The jungle itself seemed frozen. Then, with a powerful sweep of its massive body, the beast turned and slid silently back into the river. The water closed over it as though it had never been there. Silence returned. But Hammond's hands still clutched the camera, the proof he had fought so hard for. He collapsed to his knees, gasping, his mind reeling. He had seen the impossible, faced the unexplainable, and survived. At dawn, when the first light pierced the canopy, the expedition prepared to leave. They had what they came for. As they paddled downstream, Hammond glanced back at the bend in the river. The mist clung stubbornly to the water, hiding whatever secrets still lingered. He knew in his heart, Mokele-Mbembe had allowed them to leave. It had chosen not to destroy them. Back in the city weeks later, Hammond developed the film with feverish anticipation. Yet when the photos emerged, his heart sank. The images were blurred, indistinct shadows in the mist, ripples in the water, shapes that could be dismissed as tricks of light. Proof that was no proof at all. Still, he couldn't forget what he had seen. And in the silence of the night, when he closed his eyes, he swore he could still hear that low, earth-shaking bellow, echoing from the jungles of the Congo. The legend of Mokele-Mbembe lived on not just in myth, not just in whispers, but in the haunted eyes of the man who had stood face to face with it. And perhaps even now, in the misty bends of the Congo River, the creature waits, watching, listening, waiting for the next daring soul who dares to search for the truth. If you felt the chills of this encounter, don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment with your thoughts, hit the like button, and subscribe for more chilling legends from the shadows of the world.